The night was supposed to be perfect, a celebration of our 5th wedding anniversary. I had envisioned a serene evening with Tom, my husband, reflecting on the milestones we had reached together. But instead of toasting to our journey, the foundation of my carefully constructed life crumbled beneath me. Tom had planned a surprise for the occasion, something thoughtful and heartfelt. His message earlier that day was a nostalgic glimpse of the man who had once swept me off my feet. The man who could make my heart race with a simple text. But instead of joy, I felt a gnawing dread. Because I was in Jake's apartment when that message arrived. His touch still lingered on my skin, a searing reminder of my betrayal. Jake embodied the double life I had been living. With him, I felt alive, desired, and seen in ways I hadn't felt in years. He awakened a part of me I thought I had lost forever. But I knew deep down this wasn't love. It was an escape, a fleeting sanctuary from the cold, silent distance that had crept between Tom and me. When had things changed? When had we become strangers sharing the same home, yet living entirely separate lives? Was it when Tom began coming home late, consumed by work, or when our conversations dwindled into shallow exchanges about schedules and chores? Somewhere along the way, the laughter faded. The intimacy dissolved, and the love that once bound us became a shadow of its former self. Jake entered my life when I was most vulnerable. At first, it was innocent. An engaging conversation over a business lunch, a few laughs shared over coffee. But as months passed, it evolved into something much more, a secret, a refuge, and a burden. 16 months of stolen moments, of passion, guilt, and the suffocating fear of discovery. Tom wasn't a bad man. He provided for us, worked tirelessly to give us a comfortable life, and loved Jacob, our son, as if he were his own. But Jacob wasn't his. Jacob was Jake's. That truth was a tightly guarded secret, buried so deep that even I sometimes managed to suppress it. But it was always there, an ever-present shadow cast over our life. Tom adored Jacob, pouring his energy into being a devoted father despite his exhaustion from work. Watching him, I often felt the weight of my guilt press harder against me. I told myself the truth could stay buried, that we could continue living this life without the fractures beneath the surface ever breaking through. But tonight felt different. Tom's messages had been calm yet insistent, his tone somehow dissonant. The restaurant he chose was one of our old favorites, a place that once served as a backdrop to our laughter and intimacy. As I stepped inside, dressed to impress with a practiced smile on my face, I felt a flicker of hope that we might rediscover some semblance of the connection we'd lost. But the moment I met his gaze, my hope dissolved. There was something in his eyes, a coldness, a quiet storm of tightly restrained rage. He greeted me politely but distantly, speaking little as the evening unfolded. My unease grew with each passing minute, a heavy knot tightening in my stomach. And then, when the moment was right, Tom set his cards on the table, evidence, photographs, messages, proof of my affair, proof that my web of lies had unraveled completely. He knew everything about Jake, about the affair, and, most crushingly, about Jacob. Tom didn't yell. He didn't cause a scene. His calm, devastating silence was worse than any outburst could have been. He simply laid the truth between us, like an immovable wall that no words could dismantle. The weight of my betrayal hung in the air, suffocating and final. In his silence, I saw the full measure of my actions. The years of deceit, the lives I had entangled in lies, and the irreparable damage I had caused. What should have been a night of celebration had become a reckoning, a moment of unrelenting accountability. But the worst part wasn't Tom's disappointment or anger. It was the absence of either. His silence spoke of resignation, a quiet, devastating finality. In his gaze, I saw not heartbreak, but acceptance that whatever we once had was beyond salvaging. The restaurant, once a haven of warmth and love, now felt oppressive and cold. The soft lighting and intimate corners that once nurtured our connection now mocked me, casting long shadows over a shattered past. This was supposed to be a celebration of love, a tribute to the life we had built. Instead, it became the night my carefully constructed world unraveled. And as Tom walked away, leaving me with nothing but my shattered reflections, I knew there was no going back. The air felt thick, heavy with an unspoken tension. As I entered the room, I could feel it pressing in on me from every direction. Tom was already seated at the table, a place that had once been the setting for countless evenings of laughter, warmth, and connection. But tonight, everything was different. His calm demeanor was the first thing I noticed. Too calm. It sent a chill through my spine, like a silent warning. Beneath his composed exterior was something darker, something dangerous that I couldn't yet name. The moment I stepped closer, his gaze locked onto me, unwavering. Every step I took toward him felt like an eternity. It was as though his eyes were pulling me in, dissecting me from the inside out. I couldn't shake the sense that something was deeply wrong, but I couldn't place it. We sat down to dinner, our conversation polite, almost rehearsed. We exchanged pleasantries about trivial things, the kind of words people use when they're trying to avoid the things that truly matter. But beneath the surface of our conversation, there was a current of truth we both sensed, yet neither of us dared to acknowledge. As the evening wore on, that quiet tension grew thicker, more oppressive. Every word seemed to carry weight. Every glance laced with meaning we couldn't quite admit. Tom's gaze never wavered from me. It was as though he could see through all the layers I'd built, all the facades I had carefully constructed over the years. Each passing second felt like he was peeling away the masks I had hidden behind, exposing the lies that had woven the fabric of our lives. I tried to tell myself that we could make it through the evening without things coming undone, but I could feel the unraveling already. It was inevitable. Without warning, the atmosphere shifted. Tom straightened his posture, his movements slow and deliberate, like he had all the time in the world. There was a strange kind of calm about him, but it wasn't a peaceful calm. It was a cold, unsettling stillness, far more chilling than any angry outburst could have been. Instead of raising his voice, he reached into his bag, the sound of it sharp and deliberate, and placed a folder on the table between us. The mere sight of it made my chest tighten. I didn't need to open it to know what it contained. The air around us grew heavier, thicker with each passing second. And then, in a voice that was chilling in its steadiness, Tom spoke, his words landing with the force of a blow. "I know everything, Justine." The simplicity of his statement sent a shiver down my spine. His voice was calm, controlled, devoid of any warmth. Time seemed to stretch out, each second dragging on longer than the last. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I just stared at the folder, my pulse quickening, my body frozen in place. Finally, Tom opened the folder, revealing the first damning piece of evidence, a DNA test. The words on the paper confirmed my deepest, most dreaded fear. Jacob wasn't his son. The truth, stark and undeniable, lay there in black and white. The ground beneath me seemed to disappear as my world collapsed. But that was just the beginning. Tom continued. Each word calculated, each revelation more devastating than the last. He showed me photos, private investigator reports, text messages. Each piece of evidence, a shattering confirmation of my betrayal. There was nowhere to hide anymore. The life I thought I could keep secret was exposed, torn apart, piece by painful piece. "I've known for months," he said, his voice disturbingly calm. "I've wanted to see how far you'd go, how long you could keep up the act." His words hit harder than any accusation could have. I wanted to speak, to explain, to deny it all, but he silenced me with a simple command. "Don't try to talk your way out of this." It was clear now. This wasn't a misunderstanding or an accident. This was a complete unraveling of everything we had built together, the destruction of a life I had taken for granted. Tom's actions were cold, precise, deliberate. He slid another envelope across the table, its contents final, irrevocable. "Divorce, due to adultery," he said softly, offering no room for argument. I picked up the envelope, my hands trembling. It felt like the weight of everything we had ever been was contained within that piece of paper. Inside were the divorce papers, documents that would sever our marriage, that would transform years of memories, of shared experiences, into nothing more than legal formalities. I thought you should know. Tom added, his tone flat, as if speaking of some trivial matter. I've already frozen our accounts. Your things are being sent to your mother's house. There's nothing left for you here. The finality of his words struck me like a wave, overwhelming in its force. He hadn't just ended our marriage. He had dismantled my entire life, piece by piece, leaving nothing untouched. I had lost him. I had lost our home, our security, everything. But Tom wasn't finished yet. His last words sent a chill through me. As for Jake, he said, his voice still unnervingly calm, he'll pay for this too. The firm knows everything about your affair. His career is finished. I gasped, my breath catching in my throat. He wasn't just destroying our marriage. He was making sure to ruin everything I had touched, including Jake's life. What had once been a thriving career now lay in ruins, collateral damage in the wake of my lies. Looking at Tom, I could see the satisfaction in his eyes. This wasn't a rash decision. This was a carefully calculated act of revenge, and I had no one but myself to blame. Without saying another word, he stood, his movements deliberate, and walked away, leaving me alone, amid the ruins of everything I had taken for granted. Around me, the restaurant continued as though nothing had happened, oblivious to the devastation unfolding at our table. I sat frozen, clutching the divorce papers, as tears I had been holding back finally broke free. I had convinced myself that I could control everything, but it had all fallen apart. The life I had taken for granted was gone, replaced by a cold, unforgiving void. Tom had torn down every wall I had built, and now, nothing remained but the wreckage of my past. I had lost him. I had lost Jake. And now I had to face a future that was as empty and unforgiving as the man who had once promised to love me forever.